I recognized that I was in a dangerous place. I was weighted down by anxiety, negativity. I was unable to recall details of things. I was getting more and more forgetful about things. I was failing in marriage to my wife and being a dad to my kids, in terms of being supportive, being emotionally present. I just didn't have it to give. But my lack of health as a person, emotionally, spiritually, my unwillingness to face things inside of me that needed to be faced for a long time, really began to become detrimental to even my ability to do the job. And I was the last person to see that. I was raised in a pastor's home. My dad was a worship pastor. I had a sister and mom and dad, two-parent home, and we were just kind of this ordinary, average family. To look at us from the outside, we were just kind of okay people. People thought they might know us, and they did to some degree, but there was always a part of me that nobody knew on the inside. And so I would work really hard to come across a certain way in order to please other people. About a year prior to some things happening, I distinctly felt God telling me to spend some time with Him alone, to get a few days away, go listen to me, spend some time with me, let me ask you some good questions about your life and your calling and where you're headed, you know, that kind of stuff. And quite honestly, I was so locked up in what I did and so set on seeing myself a certain way and operating a certain way, and fearful of the questions that God might ask, quite honestly, that I said no to the Holy Spirit. And it wasn't but exactly 1 year later that the wheels to my life, professionally, personally, came off. And exactly a year to the January to the next January, I found myself in a position where, for the first time ever, I had had a really poor performance review. And so I found myself on a leave of absence, which became the transition to an actual job transition. And a few months later, I walked out of the church. My kids, my wife walked out, not knowing that was going to be our last time there ever. The leadership of our church at that time felt that resignation was the best alternative, better than being fired. Though if I had not chosen that, I'm confident to say they probably would have said, look, you need to be done here, and it would have been a firing. And it was a messy conclusion to what had been, at least early on, a really positive thing. And so when the storm blew in and life kind of turned upside down and I found myself in a position where I wasn't a pastor anymore, I had no clue as to who I was, what I was meant to be, what I was meant to do. I had no picture of my life, no vision for my life, and I couldn't even imagine it in any other way. And that was probably one of the most fearful, anxiety-producing moments of my life, where literally I was lost. A lot of anger, and I didn't understand really why. Things that should make me a little bit angry were making me over the top angry. Up to that point, I'd been blaming a lot of other people for a lot of things. Never been able to really own something that way. To say, no, this may not be an external thing, though it's connected to the externals. It may in fact be an internal storm in your life, and God's wanting to use this. And so I really identified with Job, where there are a couple points where God spoke to Job, and the narrative in the book says that God spoke out of the storm. It didn't say that the storm passed and then God spoke. It literally says that God spoke out of the storm to Job. And in that season of time, it seemed as if God was speaking out of a storm that was raging inside of me, that was now connecting and touching, lots of other people, my family included. And was not a period of time that I would, as I look back, not a period of time that I would want to go through again. But at the same time, because of where it took me, I wouldn't trade it for the world. God used that period of time to speak into my life in a deep way. Depression and the loss of a job became really a deliverance for me personally, and became the lifeline that God used through to me that I grabbed onto finally. It was really about, do you trust me? Do you trust that I love you? I've loved you all along. I called you to be a part of my kingdom because of you, not a role that you had to play, you don't have to be somebody you're not. I called you. And do you believe that? And quite honestly, I don't know that I believe that. I thought I had to be somebody or something I wasn't. And I guess that's one of the biggest things that has fallen away, that I've chosen. That's a part of the rebel that I choose to kind of push away. That I got to be who I am and who God has called me to be, because He's okay with who I am. He loves me. He has a plan for my life. He saw it way before I was ever even able to utter a word. And He sees every day before me. And He loves me that way.